The dust on Talvo 7 had not been disturbed in centuries. Owen Reed ran his scanner across the ancient door, watching the readings flicker and jump. Behind him, his crew waited in their environmental suits, breathing recycled air through filters that clicked with each breath. "This is it," Beth Crawford said over the comm. "The signal's coming from inside." Owen nodded and pressed his palm against the door panel. Nothing happened. He tried again, then pulled out a bypass chip from his belt. The door groaned, metal scraping against metal, then slowly opened inward. Cool air rushed out, carrying a smell like ozone and something else, something alive. They walked through corridors lined with crystalline walls. Emergency lights still glowed faintly, powered by some ancient energy source that refused to die. Owen had been a salvager for 12 years, and before that, a combat medic in the Colonial Defense Fleet. He had seen abandoned stations, ghost ships, and ruins of civilizations that had burned themselves out. This felt different. The corridor opened into a massive chamber. In the center, suspended in a medical cradle of transparent material, was a creature that made Owen stop breathing for a moment. She was enormous, easily 15 feet long from nose to tail. Her scales were pure white, almost glowing in the dim light. Wings spread out from her back, but they were wrong, twisted, held in place by thick metal braces that had fused into the bones over time. Her eyes opened. They were pale blue, almost colorless, and they focused on Owen with an intelligence that was unmistakably aware. "You should leave," the creature said. Her voice came from a translator built into the medical cradle. The words were slow, careful. "There is nothing here for salvagers." Beth took a step back. Two other crew members had their hands on their sidearms. Owen raised his hand, signaling them to stay calm. He walked closer to the medical cradle, studying the wing braces. "What happened to you?" he asked. The creature was silent for a long moment. "My name is Silvara. I am Dravenir. 3,000 years ago there was a war. I was shot down protecting an archive. My people tried to save me, but their medical technology could not heal my wings properly. They left me here in stasis, promising to return when they found a solution." She paused. "They never came back." Owen walked around the cradle, examining the braces from different angles. His medical training kicked in automatically. The bones had healed wrong. Anyone with basic anatomical knowledge could see that. The wings were set at angles that would never support flight. Worse, the braces themselves had become part of the problem, calcifying into the bone structure. "Your people left you like this?" Beth asked, her voice sharp with anger. "They had no choice," Silvara replied. The war was ending. They were evacuating. The medical systems failed. The braces were meant to be temporary, to keep my wings stable until proper help arrived. Her pale eyes closed. "I stopped expecting help after the first 1,000 years." Owen pulled out his medical scanner and ran it over the wing braces. The readings made him wince. The damage was extensive, but it was not beyond repair. Not if someone was willing to do what needed to be done. "How long have you been conscious?" he asked. "The stasis failed after 600 years. I have been awake since then." 2,400 years. Owen tried to imagine it. Trapped in one place alone, aware of every passing day. Unable to move, unable to fly, unable to do anything but exist. His stomach turned. "Are there others of your kind?" Beth asked. "I do not know," Silvara said quietly. "I sent messages for the first 1,000 years. No one ever answered. Either they are all gone or they have forgotten me." Owen finished his scan and stood back. He looked at the readings again, then at Silvara's wings, then back at the scanner. His crew was watching him, waiting for orders. They should catalog this find, report it to the Salvage Guild, and move on. That was the smart thing to do. That was the safe thing to do. But Owen had not been safe since he left the fleet. He had been a medic who could not save everyone, who had watched too many people die because the technology failed, or the evacuation came too soon, or the damage was too severe. He had failed people before. He would carry those failures for the rest of his life. He was looking at someone else. His profession had failed. "I think I can fix this," Owen said. Silvara's eyes opened again, sharp and focused. "Dozens of Dravenir doctors could not fix this. You are human. You know nothing of my physiology." "That's exactly why I might succeed," Owen replied. He pulled up the scan results on his portable display and showed them to her. "Your doctors tried to heal you using Dravenir methods. But you're not like other Dravenir, are you? You're albino. Your bone structure is different. They treated you like a normal patient when you needed something else entirely. Silvara stared at the readings. For the first time since they had entered the chamber, Owen saw something flicker across her face. Something that might have been hope, buried under centuries of disappointment. You would re-break bones that have been set for 3,000 years, she said slowly. The pain would be extraordinary. Yes, Owen admitted, I might die. Yes, why would you risk this? Owen thought about the soldiers he could not save. The colonists who died waiting for rescue. The people who trusted him and died anyway. He thought about promises that could not be kept and help that came too late. Because you've been waiting long enough, he said simply. Silvara looked at him for a long time. Then so quietly that the translator almost did not pick it up, she said, Then try. Owen spent the next week living in the ancient facility. His crew brought supplies from their ship, setting up a small camp in one of the side chambers. Every day, Owen studied the medical logs that Silvara's people had left behind. The facility's computer systems were old but still functional, running on power sources that humans had not yet figured out how to replicate. The logs painted a picture of desperate doctors working against time. The Dravenir had tried 17 different procedures to fix Silvara's wings. Each one had failed. The problem was not their skill or their technology. The problem was that they did not understand what made Silvara different. Your albinism affects more than just your coloring, Owen explained, pulling up a holographic display of her bone structure. Your bones have a different crystalline matrix than normal Dravenir. They're lighter, more flexible, but they also heal differently. Your doctors were using techniques designed for standard Dravenir physiology. Silvara watched the display with those pale, thoughtful eyes. They tried to tell me it was impossible, that I should accept my fate, but they were my flock, my family. They could not simply say they were giving up. So they left you in stasis instead, Beth said. She had taken to visiting Silvara every evening, bringing food and sitting nearby while Owen worked. That seems cruel. It was mercy, Silvara replied. In their minds, I would sleep until a solution was found. They did not know the stasis would fail. She paused. I do not blame them. The war was ending badly. They were evacuating entire worlds. I was one casualty among millions. Owen continued studying the logs, making notes on his tablet. The more he read, the more convinced he became that his approach would work. Human orthopedic medicine had developed differently than Dravenir techniques. Humans broke bones and reset them all the time. It was brutal, painful, but effective. Tell me about flying, Owen said one evening, not looking up from his work. Silvara was quiet for a moment. Then she began to speak, her voice carrying a weight of memory. Flying is not merely movement. It is thought made physical. You feel the air currents with every scale, every membrane of your wings. You adjust without thinking, riding thermals, diving through clouds, dancing with the wind itself. She closed her eyes. I flew through the Corona Nebula once. The radiation would have killed most species, but Dravenir are born in star forges. The colors were beyond description. Purples and golds and blues that do not exist in normal space. I performed the 7th ascension pattern there, a flying meditation that takes 6 hours to complete. What's it like? Beth asked softly. To remember something you can't do anymore? It is like remembering how to breathe while drowning, Silvara said simply. The work continued. Owen fabricated tools using the facility's ancient manufacturing systems, combining human designs with Dravenir materials. He created splints, braces, and support structures. He tested the facility's medical scanner, making sure it could monitor Silvara's vital signs during the procedure. He prepared sedatives and pain management systems, adapting human medications to work with Dravenir biochemistry. Beth helped him set up a surgical area, sterilizing equipment and organizing supplies. The other 2 crew members, Danny and Reese, took turns standing watch and maintaining their ship. Everyone understood that what Owen was attempting was dangerous. If Silvara died, there would be questions, investigations, possible charges. Owen did not care about any of that. You are risking your career, Silvara observed one night, when everyone else had gone to sleep. Your reputation, possibly your freedom. Owen was running final calculations on his tablet. He did not look up. You've been trapped here for 3,000 years. I think my career is less important than that. Why do you care so much? That made Owen stop. He set down his tablet and looked at Silvara directly. I was a combat medic. I watched people die because help came too late. or because we didn't have the right equipment, or because someone somewhere decided they weren't worth saving. I couldn't help them, but I can help you. This is about your guilt, Silvara said. It was not a question, maybe, Owen admitted. Does that make it wrong? No, Silvara said after a long pause. It makes it human. 2 weeks after they had first entered the facility, Owen stood before Silvara with all his preparations complete. His tools were ready. The medical systems were calibrated. The procedure was planned down to the smallest detail. Last chance to back out, he said. Silvara looked at him with those ancient, pale eyes. I have been broken for 3,000 years, she said quietly. One more disappointment will not kill me, but the hope might. Then let's make sure it's not a disappointment, Owen replied. He began the procedure at dawn, though dawn on Talvos 7 was only a slightly lighter shade of gray than night. Beth stood beside him, acting as his surgical assistant. Danny and Reese monitored the facility's power systems, making sure nothing failed at a critical moment. The first step was removing the old braces. They had fused into Silvara's bones over millennia, becoming part of her skeleton. Owen used a surgical laser to carefully cut away the metal, millimeter by millimeter. Silvara remained conscious but sedated, her breathing slow and steady. When the last brace came free, her wings sagged, held only by damaged bone and atrophied muscle. Owen examined them carefully, his scanner painting a three-dimensional picture of the internal damage. It was worse than he had expected, better than he had feared. Now comes the hard part, he said. Beth looked at him, her face pale behind her surgical mask. That wasn't the hard part? That was preparation, Owen said. He picked up a specialized tool, designed to generate precise vibrations. Now we break what healed wrong so it can heal right. He looked at Silvara. Her eyes were half closed, but she was watching him. Ready? He asked. I have been ready for 3,000 years, she whispered. Owen nodded and began his work. The vibration tool hummed against ancient bone. Owen worked with steady hands, his eyes fixed on the scanner display that showed him what was happening beneath Silvara's scales. The bone had to break cleanly, along specific lines that would allow proper healing. Too much force and it would shatter. Too little and it would not break at all. Silvara made no sound, but her claws dug into the medical cradle, leaving deep grooves in the metal. The sedatives kept her still but could not eliminate all the pain. Owen had warned her about this. Some pain was too fundamental to completely block. First fracture complete, Beth said, reading the scanner. Moving to second sight, Owen repositioned the tool. Sweat ran down his face despite the cool air in the facility. He had performed hundreds of surgeries during his time in the fleet, but never anything like this. Never on a species he barely understood, using techniques he had invented last week. The second bone broke with a sound like cracking ice. Silvara's breathing quickened. Her pale blue eyes were fully open now, staring at the ceiling. Talk to me, Owen said, not looking away from his work. Tell me something, anything. Silvara's voice was strained but steady. When I was young, before I became a guardian, I wanted to be a storm dancer. We would fly into electrical storms on the gas giants, riding the lightning between cloud layers. It was considered foolish and dangerous. She paused as Owen made another careful cut. I was very good at it. Why did you stop? Beth asked, wiping Owen's forehead with a cloth. I was chosen to guard the archives. It was a great honor. Storm dancing was for children. Guarding knowledge was for adults. Silvara's claws dug deeper into the cradle. I wonder sometimes what my life would have been if I had said no. If I had kept dancing in storms instead of sitting in libraries. You'd probably be dead, Owen said bluntly. Storm dancers don't live long, do they? No, Silvara admitted. But they die free. The work continued for hours. Owen broke and reset 7 major bone structures in each wing. He realigned the metacarpals, adjusted the wing membrane attachment points, and reconstructed the primary flight muscles that had atrophied over 3,000 years. It was delicate, brutal work that required absolute precision. Beth handed him tools without being asked, anticipating his needs. She had worked with him long enough to understand his rhythm. Danny and Reese called in updates every 30 minutes, confirming that the facility's power was holding steady. Owen was halfway through the most delicate part of the procedure, realigning the wing joint that would take the most stress during flight. When the lights flickered, Owen, Danny's voice came over the comm, tight with worry. We've got a problem. The facility's main power cell is failing. It's been stable for 3,000 years, but I think our presence destabilized something. We've got maybe 30 minutes before it goes completely dark. Owen's hands froze. 30 minutes was not enough time. He needed at least 2 hours to finish the procedure properly. If the power failed, the medical systems would shut down. The surgical field would collapse. Silvara might bleed out or go into shock. Can you reroute power from our ship? Beth asked. Already tried, Reese replied. The connectors are incompatible. We'd need days to fabricate an adapter. Owen looked at the scanner display. The wing joint was partially disassembled. Bone fragments were held in place by temporary surgical clamps. If he stopped now, Silvara would be worse off than when they started. If he continued and the power failed, she would die on the table. Owen? Beth said quietly. What do we do? He took a deep breath. Then he picked up his tools again. We work faster. The next 30 minutes were the longest of Owen's life. He moved with speed that sacrificed safety for urgency, making decisions in seconds that should have taken minutes. He skipped steps he had planned, improvised solutions for problems he did not have time to analyze properly. His hands moved on instinct and training, guided by years of emergency medicine in combat zones where perfection was not possible, and good enough had to be enough. The lights flickered again. Once, twice. The medical displays dimmed. 10 minutes. Danny warned. Owen was installing the final support structure, a framework of adaptive material that would guide the bone healing in the correct position. His fingers worked the surgical laser with precision born of desperation. The framework had to be perfect. If it was off by even a millimeter, the wing would heal wrong and they would be back where they started. 5 minutes, Reese said. The last piece clicked into place. Owen stepped back, checking the scanner one final time. The wings were reset. The supports were installed. The damaged tissue was sealed. It was not as clean as he wanted. Not as perfect as he had planned. But it was done. Beth, start the wound sealing process. Use the fast-acting compound. Beth moved quickly, spraying a medical foam over the surgical sites. The foam hardened into a protective covering that would maintain the healing environment, even without power. It was designed for battlefield use for situations where proper medical care was not available. 2 minutes. Owen activated the bone regeneration system, setting it to maximum intensity. The system would run on residual power for a few hours after the main cell died, enough to kickstart the healing process. After that, Silvara's own biology would have to take over. 1 minute. Owen, we need to get her out of here, Beth said. We need to get her to the ship. No time to move her safely, Owen replied. He was installing emergency monitoring devices, small battery-powered units that would track Silvara's vital signs. We ride it out here, the lights went out. Emergency systems kicked in for a moment, then they died too. The facility fell into complete darkness except for the small glow from Owen's portable equipment. In the darkness, Silvara spoke. Her voice was weak but clear. Did you finish? Owen sat down heavily on the floor, his legs suddenly unable to hold him. His hands were shaking. Yes. Will I live? I don't know, he admitted. The power failed before I could complete everything properly. Your body has to do the rest of the work now. There was a long silence. Then Silvara said something that made Owen's chest tighten. Thank you for trying. Even if I die, thank you for seeing me as someone worth saving. In the darkness, Owen closed his eyes and hoped that worth was enough. Silvara woke in a different place. The air smelled wrong, tasted of recycled oxygen and human machinery. She tried to move her wings and pain shot through her body, sharp and immediate. But it was a different kind of pain than she had known for 3,000 years. This pain was alive. It meant healing. Easy, Owen's voice said from somewhere nearby. You're on our ship. We had to move you after the facility lost power. You've been unconscious for 2 days. Silvara opened her eyes slowly. She was in a cargo bay that had been converted into a medical space. Human equipment surrounded her, beeping and humming with purpose. Her wings were wrapped in white material that glowed faintly with embedded medical sensors. She could feel them, truly feel them, in a way she had not for millennia. Did it work? She asked. Owen appeared in her field of vision, looking tired but pleased. Too early to tell completely, but the bones are setting properly. Your body accepted the realignment. The real test will come in about 6 months when we can remove the supports and see if the wings can bear your weight. 6 months. After 3,000 years, 6 months seemed like nothing. Silvara tried to laugh and found that her throat was too dry. Beth appeared with a container of water, specially formulated for Dravenir biology based on the old facility records. 6 months of recovery, Silvara said after drinking. What will you do? You are salvagers. You have work. We quit, Beth said simply. Sent our resignation to the Salvage Guild 3 days ago. We're staying with you until you heal. Silvara stared at her. You quit your employment for me? You've been alone for 3,000 years, Owen said, checking one of the monitors. You're not going to be alone anymore. Not if we can help it. The days became weeks. Owen monitored Silvara's healing with obsessive attention, adjusting treatments and medications daily. The wings responded better than he had hoped. The bones knitted together along the paths he had set, growing stronger day by day. The muscles began to regenerate, fed by nutrient solutions and stimulated by electrical pulses from the medical equipment. Silvara had little to do except heal and talk. The crew rotated shifts, keeping her company. She told them stories from the archives she had guarded, tales of civilizations that had risen and fallen while humanity was still learning to make fire. She spoke of the Calvorians who had built cities in the hearts of stars, of the Tremali, who had achieved perfect peace and died of boredom within a generation, of the Sixth Collective who had uploaded their consciousness into a quantum computer and then forgot how to dream. You've carried all this knowledge alone? Danny asked one evening. He was a quiet man who usually let others do the talking, but the stories fascinated him. For 3,000 years? Knowledge is not a burden when you have nothing else, Silvara replied. It was my purpose, my reason to continue existing. And now? Reese asked. When you can fly again, what will you do? Silvara had no answer for that. Months passed. Word spread through human space about the rescued Dravenir. Other ships began stopping by, their crews curious about the alien who had been saved by a salvager with a medical degree. Some brought gifts, foods from different worlds, entertainment recordings, books translated into Dravenir script that the ship's computer could display for her. Others came just to see her, to confirm that the rumors were true. Silvara found the attention overwhelming at first. She had been alone for so long that crowds of 3 felt like crowds of thousands. But slowly she adapted. She began to enjoy the visitors, the questions, the simple fact of not being alone. One night, 4 months after the surgery, Beth sat with her while Owen slept. The ship was quiet except for the usual sounds of machinery and life support. Can I ask you something personal? Beth said. You may ask anything. Do you hate them, your people, for leaving you behind? Silvara considered the question carefully. I did for the first few centuries. I raged at them, cursed them, wished them suffering equal to mine. But hatred is exhausting. Eventually I simply missed them. I wanted to see them again, even the ones who had abandoned me. I wanted to know if they remembered me at all. And now that you know, they're probably gone. Now I mourn, Silvara said quietly. I am likely the last Dravenir in existence. The last keeper of our language, our history, our way of seeing the universe. When I die, all of that dies with me. Beth was silent for a moment. Maybe that's not true. You've been teaching us, haven't you? Bits and pieces of your language, your stories. Maybe being the last doesn't mean it all ends. Silvara had not thought of it that way. She looked at Beth with new understanding. You would carry our memory forward? Someone should, Beth said. You've carried it alone long enough. 5 months after the surgery, Silvara's wings began to glow. It happened during a routine examination. Owen was checking the healing progress when he noticed a faint luminescence along the wing membranes. It was so dim at first that he thought he was imagining it. Beth, come look at this, he called. Beth came over and stared. Is that supposed to happen? Silvara had gone completely still. Her eyes were wide, fixed on her own wings with an expression of disbelief. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Dravenir wings glow when they are strong enough to catch starlight. To channel the energy of flight. Mine have not glowed since before I was shot down. The glow grew stronger over the next few days. By the end of the 5th month, Silvara's wings shone like captured moonlight, pale and beautiful. She would lie awake at night watching them glow, unable to quite believe what she was seeing. Owen removed the last of the support structures at the 6-month mark. Silvara's wings unfolded properly for the first time in 3,000 years, spreading wide in the cargo bay. They were magnificent alabaster membranes stretched over bone that had finally healed correctly. How do they feel? Owen asked. Silvara moved them carefully, testing the range of motion. The movement was stiff, unpracticed, but the structure was sound. She could feel the strength in them, potential waiting to be realized. "They feel like wings," she said, and her voice broke on the last word. Now came the hardest part. The healing was done, but healing and flying were not the same thing. Silvara had not used these wings in 3 millennia. The muscles existed, but they did not remember what to do. The bones were strong, but they had never been tested. "We need somewhere you can practice," Owen said. "Somewhere with space and safety nets." "I know a place," Beth replied. She was already pulling up star charts on her tablet. "There's an abandoned orbital platform about 2 days from here. Used to be a construction yard. It's got huge open spaces and it's structurally sound." Owen looked at Silvara. "Ready to learn how to fly again?" Silvara looked at her glowing wings, at the crew who had saved her, at the life she had somehow been given back. "Yes," she said. "I am ready to try." The abandoned platform floated in empty space like a skeleton of better days. Its central shaft stretched nearly a mile high, surrounded by construction frameworks that had rusted into artistic shapes. Beth guided their ship through the main entrance, navigating carefully through debris that had been floating in zero gravity for decades. Silvara pressed her face against a viewport, staring at the vast open space. Her wings twitched involuntarily, responding to instincts buried under millennia of disuse. "This will work," Owen said, studying the platform's layout on his scanner. "The central shaft has artificial gravity and atmosphere. Light gravity, about half of Earth standard. It'll be easier for you to manage while you rebuild your strength." They docked at one of the old maintenance levels. Silvara emerged from the ship slowly, her claws clicking on metal that had not heard footsteps in years. The platform's emergency system still functioned, providing dim lighting and breathable air. It smelled of rust and emptiness. Owen had brought physical therapy equipment, crash padding, and enough medical supplies to handle any injury short of death. He set up a training area in the widest part of the shaft, laying out padding on the floor and installing safety cables that could catch Silvara if she fell. "We start small," he said, attaching a harness around Silvara's chest. The harness connected to cables that would support most of her weight. "Just wing movements at first. No actual flight." Silvara nodded, but Owen could see the fear in her eyes. She had spent 3,000 years being unable to fly. The idea that she might fail now after everything terrified her more than the surgery had. She spread her wings. The movement was stiff, uncertain. Muscles that had not worked in millennia struggled to remember their purpose. She flapped once awkwardly and nearly lost her balance. "Again," Owen said calmly. "Don't think about flying. Just move your wings. Get used to the feeling." Silvara tried again and again. Each movement was clumsy, uncoordinated. Her wings did not move in sync. The rhythm was wrong. After an hour, she was exhausted and trembling with frustration. "I cannot do this," she said, her voice flat with defeat. "I have forgotten how." "You haven't forgotten," Beth said. She had been recording the practice sessions, analyzing the wing movements. "Look, your wings are moving. The structure is working. You just need to retrain the muscles. It's like learning to walk after being paralyzed. It takes time." But time felt cruel to someone who had already lost 3,000 years. They practiced every day. Owen designed exercises specifically for wing muscles, using resistance bands and weighted systems. Silvara would spend hours moving her wings through specific patterns, building strength and muscle memory. The work was exhausting and boring, nothing like the joyful flight she remembered. Danny built a wind generator, a device that could create air currents in the shaft. Silvara learned to feel the air moving across her wing membranes, to sense the subtle shifts in pressure that indicated lift and drag. It was a sense she had not used in so long that it felt new and strange. 3 weeks into training, Owen reduced the support from the safety cables. Silvara stood on a platform 50 feet above the padded floor, her wings spread, feeling more of her own weight. "Just glide," Owen called from below. "Don't flap. Just extend your wings and let gravity do the work." Silvara looked down at the distance. It was nothing compared to the heights she had flown before. It should have been easy, but her body did not remember easy. She stepped off the platform. For one horrible moment she fell straight down, her wings failing to catch the air. Then instinct kicked in, her wings angled without conscious thought, catching resistance. She glided, awkward and graceless, but she glided. She hit the padding hard enough to knock the wind out of her lungs, but she had flown. Badly, briefly, but she had flown. Owen was grinning when he reached her. That was terrible. I know, Silvara said, and suddenly she was grinning too. The practice continued. Silvara glided from higher platforms, learning to control her descent. She practiced wing movements until they became automatic again. She spent hours in the wind generator, eyes closed, feeling the air and remembering what her body had once known perfectly. 2 months after they arrived at the platform, Silvara achieved powered flight for the first time. She flapped her wings and rose 10 feet off the ground before panic made her forget the rhythm, and she crashed into the padding. But she had risen under her own power. She had defied gravity through her own strength. Again, she said immediately before Owen could check her for injuries. She flew again, and again. Each flight lasted a little longer, reached a little higher. The movements became smoother, more natural. Her wings remembered what her mind had forgotten. Other humans arrived to watch. Word had spread about the Dravenir learning to fly again. Ships docked at the platform, their crews gathering in the observation areas to witness something that had not happened in 3,000 years. They cheered when Silvara succeeded, groaned when she crashed, and offered encouragement that she pretended not to need, but secretly treasured. 3 months after arriving at the platform, Silvara flew the length of the central shaft without stopping. Her wings moved in perfect synchronization, catching the air with precision she had thought lost forever. She performed a banking turn at the far end, her body remembering the mathematics of flight without conscious thought. She flew back, faster, more confident. She landed in front of Owen with grace that made the months of clumsy crashes seem like distant memory. Her wings folded against her back properly. No longer the twisted, broken things they had been. They glowed brightly, catching and reflecting the platform's lights. How did that feel? Owen asked, though he could see the answer on her face. Silvara looked at him with eyes that held 3,000 years of captivity and 3 months of freedom. That felt like I remember, she said quietly. Then louder, her voice carrying through the shaft. That felt like flying. The humans watching from the observation areas erupted in cheers. Beth was crying, not bothering to hide the tears. Danny and Reese were embracing each other, laughing with relief and joy. Silvara spread her wings again, feeling the strength in them, the rightness of movement that had been denied so long. She launched herself into the air without warning, flying straight up through the shaft. She climbed higher than she had dared before, then folded her wings and dove, snapping them open at the last moment to break. She performed a spiral, a loop, a barrel roll that was sloppy but successful. She flew patterns she had not attempted in 3,000 years, each one coming back to her like a language she had never truly forgotten. Her body remembered what captivity had tried to erase. The sky was hers again, even if this sky was metal and rust and human engineering. She landed in front of Owen again, breathing hard, but feeling more alive than she had in millennia. What do I do now? She asked. The question hung in the air between them. Silvara could fly again. The impossible had become possible. But freedom without purpose was just a different kind of prison, and she had learned that lesson over 3,000 years of captivity. Owen did not answer immediately. He sat down on the platform edge looking up at her. What do you want to do? Silvara folded her wings, considering. I do not know. For 3,000 years I had one purpose, to guard the archives of my people. Now I can leave, but where would I go? What would I do? I am the last Dravenir. There is no home to return to. Beth joined them, sitting beside Owen. The archives, she said thoughtfully. You said there were others, didn't you? Other facilities like the one we found you in? 17, Silvara confirmed. Spread across known space, each one guarding the collected knowledge of extinct civilizations. I was meant to visit them all, ensuring their protection, updating their records. She paused. I never completed that duty. Because you got shot down 3,000 years ago, Danny said, walking over with Reese. That's not exactly your fault. Fault does not matter. The archives remain unguarded. In 3,000 years, anything could have happened to them. They could be destroyed, looted, forgotten. Silvera's claws clicked against the metal platform. The knowledge of 17 civilizations could be lost forever because I failed in my duty. Owen stood up, understanding dawning on his face. You want to complete your mission. After all this time, you want to check on the other archives. I have to, Silvara said simply. It is what I was meant to do. It is who I am. Then we'll help you, Beth said immediately. Silvara stared at her. This is not your responsibility. You have given me more than anyone could ask. You gave me my wings back. You gave me my life back. I cannot ask for more. You're not asking, Owen said. We're offering. You think we're going to let you fly off alone into the galaxy after spending a year keeping you alive? Not happening. Besides, Reese added, we're unemployed salvagers with no prospects. Hunting down ancient alien archives sounds a lot more interesting than sitting around waiting for job offers. Over the next month, they prepared for a journey that would take years. Owen and his crew retrofitted their ship for long-range exploration. They installed better sensors, upgraded the engines, and expanded the living quarters to accommodate Silvara more comfortably. She could not stay inside the ship all the time. She needed space to spread her wings to fly. They designed an external harness that would let her ride alongside the ship during travel, protected by energy shields and supplied with her own life support. Silvara shared everything she knew about the archives. Their locations, their security systems, their purposes. Beth cataloged it all, creating a database of knowledge that would survive even if something happened to Silvara. The thought of her knowledge dying with her no longer seemed inevitable. Danny and Reese studied Dravenir technology, learning to interface human and alien systems. They fabricated tools and equipment based on designs from Silvara's memories, creating a hybrid toolkit that combined both species' strengths. News of their mission spread. Other humans wanted to join them, to be part of something historic. Owen turned them all down. This was not about fame or discovery. This was about fulfilling a promise made 3,000 years ago by someone who had been unable to keep it. The first archive was 3 weeks away, located on a planet that orbited a dying red star. According to Silvara's records, it contained the complete history of the Velati Communion, a species that had achieved galactic peace through telepathic networking before a plague destroyed their ability to communicate. They found the facility intact, but dormant. Its power had failed centuries ago, but the archive itself was preserved in quantum storage that required no energy to maintain. Silvara walked through corridors she had visited 4,000 years ago, when she was young and the galaxy was different. She wept when she found that the archive had survived, that the Velati would not be forgotten. Owen helped her restart the facility's systems using power from their ship. They updated the records, adding information about what had happened to the galaxy in the 3,000 years since Silvara's last visit. They left behind equipment that would alert them if anyone tried to damage or steal from the archive. The second archive was harder to reach, buried in an asteroid field that had not existed when Silvara last visited. They found it breached, its outer chambers open to space. Someone had tried to loot it, but the inner vaults had held. Silvara and the crew spent 2 weeks making repairs, restoring the facility to something resembling security. The third archive was gone entirely, destroyed by a supernova that no one could have predicted or prevented. Silvara mourned for 3 days, grieving for the loss of the Korvathi civilization whose story would now never be fully known. But 15 archives remained. 15 chances to preserve knowledge that deserved preservation. They fell into a rhythm. Travel, investigate, repair, document, move on. Months became a year. A year became 2. They visited worlds that had been abandoned, stations floating in the void, facilities hidden inside moons and planetoids. Each archive told a story of a species that had risen, thrived, and fallen. Silvara made sure those stories would endure. Owen watched her change over time. The resigned, defeated creature they had found in that first facility was gone. In her place was someone with purpose, someone who flew not just because she could, but because she had somewhere to be. She still carried the weight of 3,000 years, but now she also carried hope. One evening, as they traveled toward the 9th archive, Owen found Silvara outside the ship, flying alongside them through open space. Her wings glowed brilliantly, catching the light of distant stars. She looked beautiful and fierce and entirely alive. "You're happy," Owen said through the comm. "I am complete," Silvara replied. "For 3,000 years I was broken. You gave me my wings, but you also gave me something more important. You gave me a reason to use them." 2 years after leaving the orbital platform, they reached the 17th and final archive. It was hidden inside a rogue planet that wandered between star systems dark and cold. The facility was pristine, perfectly preserved by the planet's frozen atmosphere. Silvara stood in the central chamber, surrounded by the sum total of her life's work. 17 archives, 15 still intact, all documented and protected as well as she could manage. It was not perfect. It would never be perfect, but it was done. Now what? Beth asked, echoing the question Silvara had asked Owen years ago. Silvara spread her wings, feeling their strength, their wholeness. She thought about the 3,000 years of captivity, the year of healing, the 2 years of purpose. She thought about the crew who had become her family, the humans who had given her back everything she had lost. Now, she said, we go home. Owen smiled. Where's home? Silvara looked at him, at Beth, at Danny and Reese. She looked at the ship that had carried them across the galaxy, at the stars beyond the facility walls. Here, she said simply. With you. Home is wherever you are. They left the 17th archive together, sealing it behind them. The ship's navigation computer was already plotting a course to nowhere in particular, ready to wander wherever they decided to go. Silvara flew alongside them, her white wings glowing against the darkness of space. Behind them, 17 archives held the memories of civilizations that had died. Inside the ship, new memories were being made, new stories being written, and flying through the void, free at last, was a guardian who had waited 3,000 years to finish her duty and discovered that the reward for completion was not rest, but new beginnings. The ship accelerated, and Silvara matched its speed effortlessly, her wings carrying her toward whatever came next. She was no longer grounded. She was no longer alone. She was no longer broken. She was finally completely free.